Hey, sleep deprivation. But hey, I love my classmates even though they're insane. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite TV shows. And today, I am going to do a review on the latest The Handmaid's Tale Season 3. Yeah, I basically didn't fall asleep this morning. Even though I took the sleeping pills, they didn't work. And now I'm still pretty energetic. I have no idea why. My body is just not making sense. So, The Handmaid's Tale is a show on Hulu adapting a novel by Margaret Atwood for season 1, where a new super conservative Catholic slash Christian authoritarian government formed in the USA called Gilead happened, and all the fertile women were forced to be raped so that they would bear children for the infertile woman and their husbands. One of those fertile women was June, who made multiple attempts at escaping and was trying her best to help the innocent. We have a season 1, which is actually pretty great, but season 2 is even more impressive as it is even bolder and more ambitious. Then we have season 3. And now I think my biggest concern for the show is finally happening. Since Gilead is such a depressing and dull world, how the heck would the writers manage to write anything interesting? Is it just me or is my hairline getting worse every day? Anyway, that being said though, the season starts off pretty decently with an episode where Commander Lawrence took June in as a handmaid. But of course, it's not as simple as that. There's a scene where June gets punished, but the show didn't show how she's punished, and instead, we get nice music in the back. It's like the show expect us viewers to know what to expect. We as the audience has evolved, and the show acknowledges that, and I actually kind of appreciate that. The show doesn't show the same thing happening over and over and over again. And episode 1 is also titled Night, which is strange because that's also the episode title for the season 1 finale. So I guess the writers kinda forgot about that. And episode 2, Mary and the Marthas, is actually not as interesting as the first one. June decided to help some Marthas to secretly let another Martha escape, but something went wrong. However, I do kind of like the idea that we don't know if Commander Joseph Lawrence was a good guy or not. He acts differently than any other commanders out there, and he lets people escape and do things that are against the laws of Gilead, but yet he's also very much not against the law because he made them. And then we have episode 3, Useful, which isn't all that eventful either. We have more scenes where Commander Joseph acts strange, and we also get more character development from Serena, which I think is kind of nice. But still, the episode isn't really that great overall. Actually, episode 4, God Bless the Child, isn't really that great either. A new baby was born, so the Putnams decided to throw a huge party at their house, and that's basically the whole episode. There are multiple scenes where it's just June talking to Serena or talking to Fred and then talking to Serena again. There's one scene that I actually kinda like. It's that when Janine saw the new baby, she was thrilled. So she walked up to the commanders and the wives and asked if she could hold the baby. Then Janine asked if she could continue being their handmaid. Aunt Lydia saw that and freaked out and beat her with a stick. Ooh. And after that, everybody hated Aunt Lydia, and Aunt Lydia cried, which I think is actually a pretty humane scene. The show begins to humanize Aunt Lydia. And we also get a lot of scenes where Emily was having a difficult time adjusting to her new life in Canada. Those scenes are pretty slow though. I kind of wish it would move along faster. And the pace sort of picks itself back up a little bit on episode 5, Unknown Caller, where Serena missed June's daughter Nicole slash Holly so much she actually had to go to the Toronto airport to visit her, and Luke was there, of course, and that scene was the most uncomfortable and uneasy airport meetup in history. We also get scenes where the entire tone of the scene just suddenly changes as one of the characters listens to some upbeat, danceable music. And there are like 3 or 4 of those scenes in this episode. Another problem I have is that there is still no clear indication of what are the motives of Serena, Fred, Joseph, and the new walking partner of Matthew. Everything's still a little bit confusing. On the next episode, Household, June, the Martha, Serena, and Fred went to DC to do interviews and film some videos to pressure Canada into giving Gilead Nicole back. And again, I have mixed feelings about this episode. For some reason, Serena became mean again, and then at the same time, the story is trying to show us the softer and more caring side of Aunt Lydia. And while I know that the show is trying to make these characters more three-dimensional, it just ends up feeling kinda inconsistent. But other than that, June trying to convince Nick to talk to the Canadians was a good plot point, I have to admit. And there are shots towards the end of the episode where it's pretty epic. The Lincoln statue was destroyed and the monument in DC became a huge cross, which is breathtakingly dystopian. Moving over to episode 7, Under His Eye, where nothing really happens. We see more of Emily and her girlfriend, and those scenes are pretty pointless in my opinion. We also get scenes where June tries to bring Commander Lawrence's life out of the house. Commander Lawrence's wife out of the house as an excuse to find Hannah, June's daughter, just to say hi, I guess. And it didn't go well at all. We also get multiple scenes where the handmaids must pull the ropes to help hang some people. And with the final scene, it actually felt kinda heartbreaking. And I think the most pointless scene has to be the dance between Serena and Fred. It looks like an expensive watch commercial or an insurance ad or something, and it's just a bore. It's a sluggish scene, probably one of my least favorite scenes in the entire show. Over to episode 8, Unfit, which is also not one of the more well-received episodes, but there are actually some good parts in this episode as well. We actually see some backstories for Aunt Lydia's character, almost humanizing her. Almost. Even though the show doesn't really know if they should make Aunt Lydia the monster or not. And because of Matthew betrayed the handmaids and obeyed Aunt Lydia the monster, the handmaids were basically bullying her. And there was a scene where all handmaids had to sit in a circle and point at June in the middle, calling her a sinner and all that. And June was like, oh shit, here we go again. Then June said that of Matthew, aka Natalie, have thoughts on not having a baby. So they put Natalie in the center instead, and everyone did the same thing to Natalie as they did to June. And Natalie started bawling like a baby. Then that's when the show decided to make June a crazy sociopath who's always smiling evilly for some reason, which I think is not a good character development at all. Mainly because it feels jarring, it's unlike her, and it's only temporary. It'll be cool if June slowly becomes a cold-blooded, evil, manipulative person as the series progresses, as if she's Walter White. But then the show doesn't really do that. That only lasted for 3 episodes, which I think is a little too shallow of a character development. But the ending is pretty crazy. I actually enjoyed it a little bit, even though it doesn't make much sense at all. And afterwards, it's episode 9, Heroic. Without spoiling everything, here's the synopsis for the episode. Because of Matthew was injured, but she had a baby, she had to stay on a hospital bed, and June was forced to kneel in front of the bed the whole time until of Matthew's baby comes out. And that's basically the entire episode. It's basically a filler episode, it's basically a bottle episode, and it's kind of controversial. First of all, I like the attention to detail that this episode has. How June got red eyes and black eye pockets after not being able to sleep for days. There is a lot of gore in this episode as well, maybe more than most other episodes in the series. I also like some of the more intense scenes where where June becomes homicidal, but that's where the problem also arises. June suddenly becoming a cold-blooded homicidal sociopath feels kind of unrealistic and jarring to me. And then all of a sudden, at the end, she becomes a good person again. character inconsistencies still remains a problem in the season. And then we also have June basically singing and humming the same song throughout the entire episode. It's not so great. But still, this episode isn't really that bad. It just needs to be more interesting, I guess. I mean, there are some legitimately good filler episodes I've seen. Like, of course, we have the classic Breaking Bad's Fly. And then recently, we have Mr. Robot's Don't Delete Me, which is a very beautiful and gorgeous filler episode that I actually really love. So, the Handmaid's Tale writing team, learn from them. Episode 10 is titled Bear Witness, and tension begins to brew again. Fred and George started to grow skeptical of Commander Joseph Lawrence, and I'm glad that the show finally decided that Joseph Lawrence was a good guy. Also, at the same time, June wanted to get some children out of Gilead, which is a risky idea, but finally, some steaks. Speaking of steaks, I'm hungry. There's even a scene where Fred and George had to force Joseph to have sex with June. And then get a doctor to test if June actually had sex, which is painful to watch. Really stomach churning. But then again, there are character inconsistencies. Apparently, Serena is a good person again. A couple episodes ago, she totally did a 180 degree and said she should have locked up June's mouth. And now she did another 180 degree and is on June's side again. However, the next episode, Liars, is what really takes the cake as one of the best Handmaid's Tale episodes so far. Two things happening on this episode. For one, Fred and Serena tried to negotiate with an American for the return of Nicole. Also, June trying to make a better plan for her idea to smuggle children out of the country. And both storylines really ended up totally subverting our expectations, and masterfully so. David Benioff and D.B. Wise learn from this. There was one bit of musical choice in the episode that I'm not too crazy about, but anyway, this episode is near flawless. I'm giving a spoiler alert. Okay, I assume that you skipped it. Look at the timestamps in the comments. First of all, Fred and Serena got arrested after accidentally crossing the border to Canada simply because the American Mr. Tuello let them there, which is pretty well played. Nice. Also, June went to the Jezebels to look for a guy who can secretly arrange a plane to carry 52 kids, Martha and the Lawrences, out of the country. But in Jezebels, she stumbled upon George Winslow, who's this really douchey, corrupted politician. He wanted to rape June. And when I was watching the scene before, George was going to rape her, I was like, no, don't, just don't, not again. And then the show subverted our expectations when June decided to fight back. Oh yeah. Stabbed him with a pen multiple times, then yeeted a piece of metal on his head, and now he's dead. Which is great. It's great. The penultimate episode is titled Sacrifice, and it's kind of slow-paced, unfortunately. However, there are still several interesting scenes. I like the scenes in Canada. They really feel like it's gonna lead to a totally new storyline or an epic climax. We also get the scenes in the Lawrence household, which actually has a questionable character decision that I'm not a huge fan of, but I appreciate what the writers are going for, but it still feels almost out of character, just almost. Again, spoiler alert. So basically, Eleanor, aka Joseph Lawrence's wife, OD'd on some pills. June saw that and did nothing. She could have saved her, but she didn't. And so the show decided to make June a little bit of a Walter White now. Which is weird because usually when this happens, the character would be on the path to evilness. But then at the same time, June was trying to do something nice at large here, so I don't really know what's the writers really going for here. I guess I kind of do get what the writers are going for here, because at the end of the series, at the end of the season at least, June had to kill another person. So they're trying to set June up as a person who's willing to pull the trigger and kill someone. Which, I guess, this isn't really a great way of showing June being more cold-blooded and more violent. This only makes June feel more, I guess, evil. At the end, it's episode 13, Mayday, which I think has the most ambitious plot point that the show has had until now. Basically, there's this great, crazy, risky, giant master plan by June, and she had to execute it alongside with a lot of people, secretly, and they must all try to stay alive. And that's tough, and that's risky, the stakes are high, and it's suspenseful. There are also a couple of scenes in Canada which aren't all that interesting to me. Not that they're boring, just not that interesting. But it's what happened in Gilead that kind of made this episode the best episode of the show so far. Probably. There are some scary, nerve-wracking moments, but also some heartfelt, emotional moments. And I'm giving a spoiler alert as well. So, June was gonna invite 52 kids and their Marthas into the Lawrence house at midnight, then secretly smuggle them to a plane and bring them all to Canada. One of the Marthas, who brought a little girl, came early and brought daylight, and because of that, people found out and the Martha ran back home and got killed. So the Guardians were everywhere in the city right now, just looking for that one little girl who's in the Lawrence house. Soon at night, the Guardians actually arrived near the block, so they had to all escape immediately. But Joseph Lawrence decided to stay behind, like how June stayed behind at the end of season 3, which was questionable, because again, if I were him, I'd definitely leave ASAP. I'd get killed the second the authorities find me. But anyway, June and the kids and the Marthas, as well as some of their handmaids' friends, secretly sneaked to the plane. Then suddenly, a Guardian truck showed up, so June stayed behind to try to distract the Guardians. Rita took the kids, not Karen. Rita took the kids to the plane, and then other Marthas and handmaids joined June and threw bricks at the Guardians. At one point, there's a Guardian with a gun. June actually used herself as bait to lure him into the woods and kill him. That was a pretty tense scene, but at the end, the kids successfully landed in Canada and it was emotional, even though Hannah's still in Gilead. Also, for those people who think this show is anti-Christian, it's actually not. June leading the kids to the plane actually, for some reason, reminds me a lot of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt from the book of Exodus. So I think this show isn't really anti-Christian, but the show is more like about the people who mistake Christianity, the people who took Christianity the wrong way, maybe taking it a little bit too literally. I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I shouldn't be talking about religion in my channel because I'll get killed. But still, I guess we'll know what happens to Joseph Lawrence or the Handmaids in the next season. Overall, The Handmaid's Tale Season 3 isn't as good as the first 2 seasons, mainly because of the lack of story ideas and character inconsistencies. Still, it doesn't take away from the fact that this season stuck the landing really well, and throughout the whole season, there are a lot of good scenes as well. Also, the acting is pretty great. Elizabeth Moss is great, of course, as well as the actress who plays Janine, in my opinion, is really underrated, and also Ann Dowd as Aunt Lydia. Super duper underrated. I think the cinematography on this season is even more matured and artsy than on seasons 1 and 2. However, yes, I'm still waiting for something even bigger to happen. After all, I think the end of the series must be the end of Gilead, right? Still, it's not bad. It just has a rocky middle and a slow start. My favorite episode is the finale, and my least favorite episode is episode 7, Under His Eye. I am saying The Handmaid's Tale Season 3 is a TV show worth watching, still. Actually, it's a nice try. Scratch that. It's a nice try. Could have been better. And I'm giving it a light to decent 7 out of 10. So, have you watched The Handmaid's Tale? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. Also, tonight, I have 4 movies to choose to watch.